extremism stuff which is going on. The government going to name and shame Islamist far-right groups. Will it include far-left groups? I don't know, in all of this, which would ban them from any sort of interaction with public office and things like that. But also, in the meantime, the Labour Party is setting out plans for the arts. Does it matter so much now? All about Britain's creative industries. Let's talk to the Shadow Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Darren Jones, who joins us now. Good to see you this morning. I have to say, I know you've got backing for this by people like Damien Hirst and things, saying, yes, you know, we need to encourage the arts more and it can be a good revenue stream and all the rest of it. Do you think most people watching this morning really care about funding for the arts at a time when so many other things need funding?
Well, good morning. I mean, the creative arts industry generates over £100 billion a year for the UK economy and employs around 2.5 million people. It's a huge part of our economy, and as a Bristol MP, for example, it's a huge part of our particular local economy, so it means a lot in different parts of the country. So there's an economic growth opportunity there about supporting the creative arts, not just for consumption here in the UK, but as we know from our great films, great musicals, great TV shows, great music, from export around the world too.
Vote winner, though, do you think this is going to get people to vote for the Labour Party?
Well, we're setting out our strategy today for the creative arts sector, not because we think it's convenient electorally, but because we think it's important for the country. It's starting to flesh out our priorities if we are to win the election coming into government, and supporting UK arts is an important part of that for the reasons I've just set out. But we're also setting out today how we want that to be an opportunity for lots of people across the country, which is why creative arts education in schools, whether it's music, drama or art or otherwise, should be funded. There should be teachers available in schools, and people should be given the opportunity to learn about that and then take those opportunities when they leave school.
To be a bit more specific, I mean, you mentioned the film industry and how that's good for Britain internationally and is a money spinner. Yeah, great. Music is very important, theatre's very important, all these sort of things which we can recognise and get involved in. But then you get some of these weird sculptures, and you get, Damien Hirst, who's backing this with his half a cow in formaldehyde and all the rest of it. How does any of that benefit the country?
Well, we have lots of great art galleries and exhibitions across the country. One of the things that we're talking about today is how we make more of that available in public spaces and to the public. Of course, it's a proud legacy of the last Labour government that our museums and art galleries are free to be accessed across the country. And whether it's, the Tate in Liverpool, here in London and in Cornwall, or whether it's our municipally owned art galleries and theatres, these are an important part of our local communities. It provides people with joy and opportunity, and the opportunity to experience and understand new things, and it's something that we should celebrate and support.
Look, we've been talking about the government's new definition of extremism all morning today. I wanted to ask about your colleague, Andy MacDonald. He represents Middlesbrough. The Labour Party have reinstated the whip to him after he used that controversial phrase, from the river to the sea, at a pro-Palestine rally. Many Jewish groups, many people would take issue with that phrase, saying that it calls for a destruction of Israel. He has apologised. Labour investigation has said that nothing was found to be against the party's rule book. Do you think it's right that his whip was reinstated? And in that sense, would you reinstate Diane Abbott?
Well, look, all of these issues, whether they are complaints or investigations into colleagues' behaviour, are done through an independent process. I, as a politician, have no access to that. I'm not briefed on that. I'm not given any detail about it. All I know is when an investigation is started and when it's concluded. It was concluded in respect of Andy MacDonald yesterday, and I'm sure it will be concluded in respect of Diane and other colleagues in due course.
Yeah, I mean, on the basis of this new move by Michael Gove, who we'll talk to a little bit later on, do you think it is right that action is taken against extremist groups to sort of keep them out of public meetings, public office, or is there a concern over free speech? I mean, how do you handle it?
So it's right that we tackle hateful extremism. Of course, that's not to be tolerated in our society, and action should be taken where that is found to be the case. The announcement from the Conservatives today, though, doesn't really go far enough, in our view, in the Labour Party, because all it's about is about government financing or engagement with organisations and individuals. It's not updating the counter-extremism strategy, which is now 9 years out of date. It's not putting forward an action plan for agencies who engage on these issues in local communities to improve what they're doing. And it therefore rather begs the question, is Michael Gove concerned that the government today is already funding extremism groups? And is that why they've come forward with this update today? And if so, he should be clear about that with the House of Commons later this morning.
Grant Shapps, the Defence Secretary, has spoken exclusively to GB News, asking for 3% of GDP to be spent on defence. Is that something that the Labour Party would support?
Well, look, it's not uncommon for defence secretaries to call for more money, and clearly there are concerns, whether in Europe or elsewhere in the world, about the precarious situation we may find ourselves in. But actually, this story is more about the defence secretary after the Conservative budget having to call for more money. Even, I might say so on your show. What really ought to happen is the Defence Secretary should have had an agreement with the Chancellor before the budget last week. And this is just another sign of the Conservative Party being in chaos and Conservative ministers going out to bat for themselves in respect of potential future leadership contests.
Look, a very clever answer, Darren Jones. You didn't actually answer the question, though.
Well, remind me what your question was.
Well, the question is, would Labour support 3% of GDP on defence?
Right. Well, there's a big question for the Ministry of Defence about how it spends its existing budget. So you couldn't possibly come to a decision on that until you've had the chance to look at how it's spending what it's already spending. The UK proudly meets its NATO commitments on 2% of GDP. That will be maintained and guaranteed by an incoming Labour government. But of course, when you're in opposition, you don't get access to any information from the Ministry of Defence for security reasons. And so the first thing we would have to do if we were to win the election is to conduct a security and defence spending review to look at how the budget's allocated. And if there's a case for more money, I'm sure that my colleague, the Shadow Defence Secretary, John Healey, will make the case for that inside a Labour government in those circumstances.
OK, Darren Jones, good to talk to you. Thank you.